Welcome to Stories of History. I'm Virgilio, your guide through the twists and turns of the past. Today we're diving deep into the fascinating world of historical hoaxes, those elaborate fabrications that have captivated and fooled people for centuries. We'll be focusing specifically on the infamous Cardiff giant, a hoax that shook the nation of the late 19th century, and what it reveals about our own desire to believe in the extraordinary. But we'll also explore other intriguing examples of manufactured history, from the Piltdown Man to the myth of chastity belts. So why do these hoaxes matter? What can they teach us about ourselves, about our relationship with history, and the power of storytelling? Well, let's start by setting the stage. Imagine it's 1869. America is still reeling from the Civil War. The Industrial Revolution is transforming society. Science is challenging traditional beliefs. And amidst this backdrop of change and uncertainty, people are hungry for something remarkable, something that can reconnect them to a sense of wonder and awe. Enter the Cardiff giant, a colossal figure seemingly petrified, unearthed on a farm in upstate New York. The discovery sends shockwaves through the nation, igniting debates about the Bible, evolution, and the very nature of truth itself. But the story of the Cardiff giant begins not with its discovery, but with a cunning farmer named George Hull, a man who decided to use a hoax to challenge religious dogma and expose what he saw as blind faith. Hull, you see, had a rather contentious relationship with organized religion, particularly the biblical claim that giants once roamed the earth. He found himself in a heated debate with a preacher about the literal interpretation of the Bible, and instead of just arguing, Hull decided to take matters into his own hands. He was going to create his own biblical giant, a hoax so audacious, so meticulously crafted, that it would fool even the most learned experts and expose the public's willingness to believe in the fantastical. Hull's plan was surprisingly elaborate. He traveled all the way to Iowa, purchased a massive block of gypsum weighing over 2 tons, and secretly transported it to Chicago. There he enlisted the help of a skilled German sculptor to carve this gigantic block into the form of man. They paid meticulous attention to detail, going so far as to treat the gypsum with acid to give it that aged, ancient look. They even hammered needles into the giant's surface to simulate pores, creating the illusion of a truly ancient being. Now, Hull didn't just want to plant this giant anywhere. To make his hoax truly believable, he needed the perfect location, a place where the discovery of a giant wouldn't seem entirely outlandish. That's where his cousin's farm in Cardiff, New York came into play. Hull's cousin was struggling financially, and Hull saw an opportunity to both execute his grand scheme and help his relative out in the process. They secretly buried the giant on the farm, letting it age underground for a year. And as luck would have it, during that year, several genuine fossils were discovered in the area, further bolstering the plausibility of their impending discovery. A year later, Hull instructed his cousin to hire workers to dig a well, specifically at the spot where the giant was buried. Can you imagine the shock and awe when their shovels hit something solid, something gigantic? News of the petrified giant spread like wildfire. Crowds flocked to Cardiff from all corners of the nation. Newspapers couldn't get enough of the story. The Cardiff giant became a national sensation overnight. People were paying 50 cents a pop, a significant sum at the time, just to get a glimpse of this supposed biblical giant. Hull's cousin's farm was transformed into a bustling tourist attraction, all thanks to a giant lie buried beneath their feet. But the impact went far beyond mere spectacle and profit. The Cardiff giant ignited intense debates. It fueled the flames of the age-old clash between creationists, who saw the giant as proof of the Bible's literal truth, and evolutionists, who vehemently denied its authenticity. Scientists and experts were called in to examine this marvel, and many of them, caught up in the excitement or perhaps influenced by prevailing scientific thought, initially declared it genuine. They offered complex explanations, drawing on geological and anatomical theories, further fueling the public's belief in this incredible discovery. But not everyone was fooled. From the beginning, there were skeptics, particularly those with a keen eye for geology and anatomy, who saw through the charade. They questioned the giant's formation, its lack of proper fossilization, and its suspiciously convenient discovery. And then enter a key figure, Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr., a renowned physician and anatomist from Harvard. Determined to get to the bottom of this, he drilled a small hole behind the giant's ear, expecting to find fossilized brain matter. What he found instead was solid rock, further confirming the suspicions of those who had doubted the giant's authenticity from the start. Driven by Holmes' findings and the persistent efforts of other skeptics, further investigation traced the gypsum back to its origin in Iowa and uncovered the involvement of the sculptor. The truth was out. The Cardiff giant was nothing but an elaborate fabrication, a testament to George Hull's ingenuity, his audacity, and the public's sometimes dangerous desire to believe. But even though the hoax was exposed, the story didn't end there. The Cardiff giant, stripped of its biblical significance, became a cultural icon in its own right, a symbol of both human ingenuity and our susceptibility to deception. It went on tour across the United States, drawing crowds eager to see the giant that had fooled so many. And you know what's fascinating? You can still see the Cardiff giant today. It resides in the Farmers Museum in Cooperstown, New York, a silent but imposing reminder of a time when a farmer's audacious lie captivated a nation. The Cardiff giant may have been an American spectacle, but the desire to rewrite history, to shape narratives, to perhaps even insert ourselves into the grand tapestry of the past, is a universal human impulse. And this desire has led to other captivating hoaxes throughout history, often with far-reaching consequences. Take, for example, the Piltdown Man, a supposed missing link between apes and humans that fooled the scientific community for decades in the early 20th century. Picture England in the early 1900s. The world is abuzz with Darwin's theory of evolution. The hunt is on for fossil evidence that can illuminate the story of human origins. And there's a certain nationalistic pride in wanting to find those crucial pieces of evidence in England itself. Enter Charles Dawson, an amateur archaeologist who claims to have discovered fragments of a skull and jawbone in a gravel pit in Piltdown, Sussex. These fragments, he argues, belong to a previously unknown species of hominid one that bridges the gap between apes and humans. The discovery sends shockwaves to the scientific community. The Piltdown Man seems to fit perfectly with prevailing theories about human evolution. Its skull, though large and human-like, is paired with a jawbone that's distinctly ape-like. It becomes a national treasure displayed proudly in the British Museum, seemingly confirming England's place in the story of human evolution. But over time, cracks begin to appear in the seemingly perfect narrative. As new dating methods emerge, inconsistencies arise in the age of the Piltdown Man's bones. Microscopic analysis reveals suspicious filing marks on the teeth, and the overall anatomical discrepancies become harder and harder to ignore. Finally, in 1953, scientific advancements in dating and chemical analysis exposed the truth. The Piltdown Man is a carefully constructed forgery. The skull is indeed human, but it's only a few hundred years old. The jawbone belongs to an orangutan, its teeth deliberately filed down to mimic human wear patterns. And the whole thing has been stained to create that ancient, fossilized appearance. The revelation rocks the scientific community. Reputations are tarnished. Trust in scientific authority is shaken. And the Piltdown Man becomes a cautionary tale about the dangers of confirmation bias, the allure of fame, and the importance of rigorous skepticism, even in the face of seemingly irrefutable evidence. The identity of the Piltdown Man's forger remains a mystery to this day, adding another layer of intrigue to this tale of deception. Was it Charles Dawson himself, eager for recognition? Was it a prank gone wrong? Or was there a more complex motive at play? We may never know the full story, but the Piltdown Man hoax serves as a stark reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is a complex and often messy endeavor. It highlights the importance of challenging assumptions, questioning evidence, and remaining open to alternative interpretations. But the desire to find evidence that supports pre-existing beliefs isn't limited to the realm of science. It can also manifest in more spiritual and historical contexts. And perhaps one of the most enduring examples of this is the Shroud of Turin, a linen cloth believed by some to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. This artifact, bearing a faint image of a man, has been the subject of intense scrutiny, debate, and even a dedicated field of study known as syndenology for centuries. Imagine a linen cloth bearing the imprint of a crucified man, an image so haunting, so evocative, that it seems to defy human explanation. For centuries, the Shroud of Turin has captivated believers and skeptics alike, fueling passionate arguments about its authenticity and its potential connection to one of history's most significant figures. Proponents of the shroud's authenticity point to the image itself, arguing that it couldn't have been created by human hands. They suggest that the image is the result of some unknown process, perhaps even a supernatural event linked to the resurrection of Jesus. They conduct numerous tests, analyses, and historical investigations, all aimed at proving that the shroud dates back to the time of Christ, and that the image is indeed that of the crucified Jesus. Skeptics, on the other hand, view the shroud with a more critical eye. They argue that it's a medieval forgery created using techniques available at the time. They point to inconsistencies in the fabric, the lack of historical documentation prior to the 14th century, and radiocarbon dating results that place the shroud firmly in the medieval period. The debate surrounding the Shroud of Turin highlights the complex interplay between faith science and the human desire for tangible proof of the divine. It's a story where the lines between belief and evidence become blurred, and where the weight of history and tradition can influence even the most rigorous scientific inquiries. While the Shroud of Turin may be one of the most well-known examples of this phenomenon, history is filled with artifacts, relics, and stories that have been challenged, debunked, or outright exposed as fakes. From alleged pieces of the True Cross to vials containing the blood of saints, countless objects have been imbued with religious significance, often with dubious origins and questionable authenticity. And the motives behind these forgeries are as varied as the objects themselves. Sometimes it's about profit, as with the Cardiff giant, where financial gain was a significant driving force. Other times it's about bolstering religious beliefs or confirming existing historical narratives, as seen in the attempts to authenticate the Shroud of Turin. And sometimes it's simply about the thrill of deception, the challenge of fooling the world and leaving a lasting mark on history, however dubious that mark may be. But perhaps one of the most surprising and, frankly, amusing historical hoaxes involves an object that has become synonymous with medieval times: the chastity belt. Yes, that metal contraption designed to prevent female infidelity, a symbol of male control and a testament to the supposed moral rigidity of the past. Except here's the twist. It never actually existed, at least not in the way we've come to imagine it. The idea of the chastity belt emerged in the 18th century during the Enlightenment, a time when intellectuals were looking back at the Middle Ages with a mix of fascination and disdain. They saw the medieval period as a time of superstition, barbarity, and of course, sexual repression. The chastity belt fit perfectly into this narrative. It became a symbol of medieval cruelty, a tangible representation of the perceived oppression of women during that era. But the reality is far less scandalous. There's no historical evidence to suggest that chastity belts were ever actually used in the Middle Ages. No contemporary accounts, no artistic depictions, no archaeological finds. The chastity belts we see in museums today, those intricate, often terrifying contraptions, were actually fabricated in the 19th century, created as curiosities, museum pieces, or perhaps even as tools for titillation. They became popular exhibits, reinforcing the myth of the chastity belt and contributing to a distorted view of medieval history. It wasn't until the late 20th century that historians and museum curators began to seriously question the authenticity of these objects. Careful analysis revealed that the materials and construction methods used were inconsistent with medieval technology. And perhaps most tellingly, the supposed chastity belts were often far too elaborate and impractical for actual use. Imagine trying to wear one of those things for any extended period. It would be uncomfortable, unhygienic, and frankly impossible to conceal. The myth of the chastity belt, like so many other historical hoaxes, reveals our tendency to project our own values and assumptions onto the past. We create narratives that fit our preconceived notions, even if those narratives are based on falsehoods. And the fact that the chastity belt myth persisted for so long, even gaining a foothold in reputable museums, highlights the power of cultural narratives and the importance of constantly questioning what we believe to be true. So what can we learn from these elaborate hoaxes? From petrified giants to chastity belts? Well, for starters, they reveal a fundamental truth about human nature. We have a deep-seated desire to believe, to find meaning and wonder in a world that can often feel mundane and predictable. We're drawn to the extraordinary, to stories that challenge our understanding of history, science, and even our own beliefs. And sometimes that desire can lead us down a path of deception, where we willingly suspend our disbelief and embrace stories that deep down we know might be too good to be true. Think about it. Why are we so captivated by conspiracy theories? Why do urban legends persist even when they've been debunked countless times? It's because these stories offer us a sense of excitement, intrigue, and a feeling that we're in the know, that we've uncovered a hidden truth that others have missed. They tap into our innate curiosity and our desire to make sense of a complex and often chaotic world. But these hoaxes also serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of critical thinking. They urge us to question what we see, hear, and read, to be wary of those who claim to have all the answers, and to approach information with a healthy dose of skepticism. It's easy to look back at these hoaxes and chuckle at those who are taken in by them, but it's important to remember that we're all susceptible to deception, especially when it plays on our desires, fears, or deeply held beliefs. Think about the information we encounter every day. The news articles, social media posts, the stories our friends and family tell us. How often do we take these things at face value without questioning their source, their validity, or the potential biases behind them? The Cardiff giant, the Piltdown Man, the Shroud of Turin, the myth of chastity belts, they all serve as cautionary tales. They remind us that even the most respected experts can be fooled, that scientific consensus can be swayed by personal beliefs and ambitions, and that history itself can be manipulated to fit certain agendas. So what can we do? How can we protect ourselves from falling prey to these elaborate fabrications? The answer lies in cultivating a mindset of critical inquiry. It's about questioning assumptions, evaluating evidence, seeking out diverse perspectives, and being willing to change our minds when presented with new information. It's about recognizing that the pursuit of truth is an ongoing process, one that requires constant vigilance, intellectual humility, and a healthy dose of skepticism. And remember, history is full of stories that turned out to be too good to be true. So keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep those minds engaged. Until next time on Stories of History.